guys, today I want to talk with you about Sharp Objects. This psychological thriller slash crime slash mystery novel by Gillian Flynn was published back in 2006, and in 2016 it was adapted to a TV miniseries by the same name. As per usual, we will start this video with a short synopsis, then proceed to the non-spoiler review and wrap this video up with the spoilers. If you haven't read Sharp Objects yet, then do not worry, I will make sure to let you know when the spoilers begin. In Sharp Objects, we follow a news reporter, Camille, who's being tasked with writing a story about a series of gruesome crimes that are happening in her hometown. Pretty straightforward task if you ask me. For Camille though, a woman who just got out of psychiatric facility, going back home and facing her dysfunctional family, as well as all the things that have happened during her childhood, might very well end up being her breaking point. Now let me say this right away. Sharp Objects is not an easy book to read. It's not the type of novel you would want to grab at the end of the day because you want to relax and enjoy yourself. The atmosphere, the subject matter, the characters, the crimes, none of it is even remotely pleasant. It's dark and heavy and it leaves you feeling somehow dirty inside. Like you just spend hours dealing with the worst parts of humanity. It is quite obvious from the very first pages that Gillian Flynn intended to write a book that would feel raw. She had no intention of making you root for anyone. In Sharp Objects, we follow three main and multiple secondary characters. Main ones being Camille, our protagonist, her mother Adora, and her 13 years old half-sister Ama. Camille, as mentioned shortly in the synopsis, is someone who is dealing with her fair share of mental health issues. She never knew her biological father. She grew up with a mother who has always been rather vocal about Camille being a disappointment, a stepfather who is more or less a stranger to her despite marrying her mother when Camille was still a baby. And the only person who Camille could rely on, her sister Marianne, has died when Camille was only 13 years old herself, pushing Camille into an unhealthy cycle of grief, alcohol, sex, and self-harm. Meanwhile, Adora is the type of a woman who should have never decided to be a mother in the first place. She's emotionally unavailable, neurotic, and psychologically abusive to all of her children. She looks at her daughters as some sort of a project she's forced to complete. Something she needs to fix, and if she fails to fix it, she discards her child and moves on to another. Not literally, obviously, but throughout the novel we get to see that after Marianne's death, Camille struggled to meet Adora's expectations and therefore was consequently pushed aside as someone unimportant, while Ama took up her position as an only child worthy of Adora's attention. And Ama is just another example of a non-likable and deeply disturbing character. Her attitudes throughout the book vary between that of a mean girl, a queen bee, and that of manipulative sociopath. In all honesty, I cannot remember the last time I had such an urge to punch a fictional child right into their face as when reading Sharp Objects. In addition to these characters, we have the secondary ones who all suck too. Camille's father is living in his own world and refuses to actively participate in anything that's happening around him. The police detective sent to investigate the crime is self-centered and willing to use others in order to achieve what he needs. Even Camille's boss, the closest thing she has to a father figure and subjectively speaking the least messed up character in the novel, still can be blamed for pushing Camille into a situation she was clearly not ready for. Even the townspeople, who barely get any mention in the book, or the women who get just a few lines of dialogue, leave an impression of someone who is sad, mean, and abusive. The stories we were told by Camille on how fellow teenagers treated her and each other made my blood boil with anger. I think I didn't even realize just how front and center women are featured in Sharp Objects until I actually sat down to write this review. We have a female protagonist, her family members, the ones that truly matter are women, and even the victims are teenage girls. And all of these female characters are fascinating and multidimensional. None of them are pushed into a box that should follow a specific trope or stereotype. We don't have your typical beautiful and virginal heroine, or perfect housewife, or femme fatale who might be evil yet justified in her actions. The women in this novel are allowed to be all of the above at once. They're allowed to be good people at heart who did bad things, who are messy and emotionally unavailable. At the same time, they are allowed to be pure evil just for the sake of being evil. To me, Gillian Flynn wrote her female characters the way other thriller authors write men. She allowed all of them to be unapologetically flawed. And while the strongest aspect of the book is without a doubt characters and their dynamics with one another, the plot in the novel is obviously being pushed forward by Camille's investigation of the crimes committed. And truth be told, I have found the mystery aspect of Sharp Objects to be riveting. As none of the characters in the novel were likable, it was rather easy to just start looking at each of them as a potential suspect. At the exact same time, I could honestly not make up my mind on who I believed the killer to be. All of them seemed to be too obvious of a choice, and I knew that Gillian Flynn doesn't do lazy writing, so all through the book I could not shake the feeling that I'm missing something that is right in front of my eyes. Now, while this wasn't my favorite novel of Gillian Flynn that I have read to date, as this honor still belongs to Dark Places, I can still very much recommend Sharp Objects to people who like reading difficult stories with difficult yet fascinating people. And on this note, let's move to the spoiler review. So if you haven't read Sharp Objects yet, but you feel like this book might be right up your alley, now it's the time for you to click off this video. So as I mentioned in my non-spoiler review, big chunks of this novel are dedicated to the women, their lives, and the events that have shaped their personalities. What I have not mentioned before, however, is that one of the main topics concerning said women is motherhood, or the relationships between mothers and their children. And while at first this isn't so obvious as we only get to see how Camille interacts with her own mother, soon enough it becomes obvious that Gillian Flynn left the breadcrumbs pointing to this being an important topic all through the book. Let's take a moment to look at the chapter where Camille decides to join the girls' night in hopes of getting some leads for the case. These women are quick to turn the conversation into the topic of motherhood. One moment they are crying over wanting to have more children and be stay-at-home moms, as well as complaining that modern feminists look down at their life choices. And just few moments after, they themselves start bashing the women who decide to choose something else in their lives instead of becoming mothers. Overall, I found their comments about women not being real women before they give birth, or not being able to unlock the full capacity of their hearts and truly understand what love means before becoming mothers, to be obnoxious. It is a nasty attitude to have towards the women who decide to stay child-free, and is borderline cruel towards those who are unable to get pregnant. But even if I put my personal feelings towards this topic aside, all through the book we are shown over and over again that not everyone is meant to be a parent. If anything, we are shown a multitude of examples of people who are doing a pretty awful job at it. Adora had a shitty parents and in time became a shitty mother herself. Camille had shitty parents, as in her biological father is a no-show, her stepfather has never wanted to have anything to do with her, and Adora herself, well, even if we put aside her psychotic obsession with drugging her daughters, we're still left with a manipulative, emotionally distant, and neglectful mother. Even in this book, Adora goes out of her way to explain to Camille why she doesn't love her. The victims, or the secondary characters such as John or the boy who identifies the killer being a woman in white, do not have a strong relationship with their own parents either. Even by the end of the book, we see Camille herself becoming somewhat of a pseudo-mother to her teenage sister Ama. And while she is a massive step up from Adora, this relationship is not based on love. In my eyes, it is based on a mixture of guilt and necessity. I guess what I'm trying to say is that not all women are made to be mothers, and not all men are made to be fathers. And Sharp Objects shows to us perfectly over and over again that just being a mother doesn't turn you into a good person, nor does it unlock the magical ability of loving your child unconditionally. Now, what I really didn't expect to see in Sharp Objects is a romance subplot, and the fact that the very first time I got to read about Camille and Richard together, my thoughts instantly went to, oh well, why not? I guess I ship them. Is a statement to how many romance novels I was reading at the same time as I was reading Sharp Objects. Though, of course, soon enough I realized that there won't be any actual romance in a gritty novel like this. Camille's and Richard's romance for the most of the part felt very temporary, something immature and born out of convenience. Richard started this whole thing because he was bored, and while I do believe that he did have a little crush on Camille when they first met, that's all there was. A little crush on a woman he heard about, not a woman who was actually in front of him. Meanwhile, Camille just goes along with it all. I'm honestly pretty sure that she doesn't even like Richard as a romantic partner. She's with him because being with him makes her investigation easier. Sex for information. Quid pro quo. If anything, when it comes to Camille, to me this relationship showed her regression to the person she was when she was a teenager. Now, the juxtaposition of Camille's relationship with Richard and her one-night stand with John was simply wonderful. From the first glance, she and Richard make sense. Both of them feel unwelcomed in this town, as well as both of them are trying to investigate the same crime. They match each other rather well intellectually, and they are of similar age. Yet everything about them together feels superficial, weirdly wrong at times. Meanwhile, Camille and John have nothing in common but the trauma of losing a sibling. She's 30, he's 18. When you look at it objectively, their night together should make you feel icky. And yet, John had shown an unwavering acceptance towards Camille and her scars, while Camille herself showed a level of vulnerability with him I didn't realize she was even capable of. And while neither of these two relationships have a future, I found myself wishing for Camille to put her past behind and find someone as understanding of her fears as John. Now, when it comes to the crime aspect of the novel, unfortunately, I felt like the storyline was the weakest one in the story. Now, don't get me wrong, the whole thing with Adora and how we ended up learning basically out of blue that Marianne was poisoned by her own mother was amazing. It was one of the best plot twists, and it was executed brilliantly. The crime that pushed Camille to travel back home, however, now that's something I wasn't as big of a fan of. While the crime itself was interesting and gruesome enough, for the longest time I just couldn't believe that Amma or Adora might be actually behind it. Yes, they both behave like psychopaths, but either one of them being the killer just felt too easy. And so learning that Adora is the killer was rather disappointing. Until we learned that it's actually Amma and her friends who did it. Something that we only got to know after Camille took Amma into her house. Now, imagine taking your teenage sister in, living with her every day, taking care of her, making sure she's able to move on from all the damage their mother did, just to learn that this little sister of yours is a killer too. Now, that felt like a pretty decent plot twist as well, until I finished the book and stopped to think for a moment about just how unrealistic that actually is. I just cannot convince myself that 3 teenage girls managed to carry out 2 murders so perfectly that none of them left any forensic evidence behind, that there were no witnesses, no traces. I mean, they pulled out their victims' teeth one by one, and we are told just how much force an act like that needs. And yet they didn't leave anything behind? Nothing? I guess they should be giving Dexter lectures on how to successfully carry out murders without barely any preparation. Despite the ending being slightly disappointing, Sharp Objects is still a book that will stay in my mind as a great thriller that doesn't shy away from difficult topics and deal with people who are at their worst. But that's just my opinion. What about yours?